Hi, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to D&D. I am your host, more human than human, Tristan. To my left, we have I'll take one of everything, Sam. And to my right, we have basic girl, Brandon.
Dang it. Man.
So today we are continuing our journey into the different races of D&D. And as always, at the moment, we're still starting with everything that's in the player's handbook. And our next thing today is humans.
Something we're all just very familiar with right off the bat.
Right, because they're pretty much the same thing now.
Because two people at the table are humans. We'll let you figure out which one's not. Da-da-da. Well, that was easy.
So yeah, we're talking about humans today, and humans are fairly actually common when it comes to creating a character. Statistically, as we've discussed before, the most common player out there is a human fighter.
It has just leaps and bounds of more players and more players and more players than any other combination.
Now, as we go through this, we discuss why it's probably a reason people choose them. Now, I know as players ourselves, we tend to stray away from humans pretty often because of statistics, and with D&D you get to be...
I can be a dragon.
Right, you can be a dragon.
Why be a human when you can be a demon person?
Or why be a human when you can be an 8-foot-tall giant?
Goliath person.
Yes.
Like, there are valid reasons to pick humans, and we're definitely going to be talking about that.
Yes.
Just as our own personal aside, we don't pick humans too often. Though, my next player in the campaign we're running, depending on if a character dies... will be one.
Possibly two. Yeah, I mean, granted, yeah, as we talk about that, it's one of those things where even though we tend to lean away for humans, for us as players, the right story could definitely change our minds.
Give the human a little bit more of a reason to be.
Right, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So,
in context, you think, like, most people think, oh, humans, elves, dwarves, all at the same time. No. Humans are the youngest race that has existed on the material plane in the D&D universe.
Right.
So when people are like, "Oh, they're human. They're so young," and you find a human that's like 150 years old that somehow through magic, they're young by comparison of like genealogical race age.
Right, and this is why you have races like the elves for sure. And the dwarves that see them as a young race, and this, of course, is with as we go through these things, we always talk about the history of these races. We don't go too in depth because a lot of them have major history, especially with these older ones. But even humans still have a vast history in the world of D&D. But this is where you'll see like elves and dwarves like, oh,
look at the little guy,
look at the humans,
and the humans are in constant. Most civilizations in humankind in D&D are in a constant struggle to prove themselves as stronger than their race is. That's why most times in D&D, humans will create vast cities and countries and things like that to prove, like, we're strong. We have a bunch of people. There's a lot of us. And then the elves go, that's nice. I'll wait another 300 years and this is all going to go away.
Yeah, this is definitely where you're going to see, like, when you play certain games, especially like the pre-med games, there is very much a, for lack of a better term, a satire on human nature in general, where, there's the talks of, like, humans live through conquest and greed and things like that.
For their short lives and their short time span on the earth, they're trying to get maximized everything, which is funny about maximizing everything, and we'll get into that here in a minute.
Right. Just as far as what other races think of humans and stuff like that, they can be seen.
They can be seen as like trustworthy companions, but also like short-lived blips on the map.
Right, like certain greeds and stuff. Because as much as like something like a dwarf might be pretty fond of gold, they'll sometimes see humans as even more so because humans can be pretty materialistic in a lot of ways, and some of that comes down to us being as players.
Oh, a lot of players. I mean, it's D&D. A lot of people's like, money, give me the shinies, murder hobos. So, and when you think about the human race in reality, that's pretty much how it works in D&D. You can make any variety, any way of a human. You could be the palest of humans. You could be the darkest of humans. You could be the tallest, the shortest, the smallest, the biggest. It's if a human can exist. You can make it in D&D.
Yes.
And you're not limited by dwarves being under a certain height. Like, you could potentially, if you really wanted to you have to fall in line. You can't be like an 8-foot human, but you can make it so you're a little bit on the shorter side of human or taller side of a human, and that's fine because of human diversity and variety.
Right.
And there are also, like, you can even have a human that has, like, that shows, like, a phenotype of, like, a dash of, like, a bloodline of certain types. So let's say that there's, like, their great-grandpappy was an elf or something. Like,
You can have
you can have, like, a little bit of, like, an ear change or, like, you know, a little bit, some small, slight, like,
Right.
other race features. Because that's just sort of how it goes, you know? Like,
Yeah, so, I mean, in the D&D universe, there are different races with different characteristics and stuff. We don't really go into those. If you're playing like a pre-made game, or if you're trying to stick as close to the lore as possible, definitely look into those. But if you're just playing a game and your DM's just like make a human, or if you're like I want to play a human, they don't really care. Make whatever you want.
Make yourself.
If you want, yes.
Make us. Do it. Oh, challenge right now. Make 3 humans who have like a magical talk show that they send out over like a mass like sending stones. Make 3 humans. Make us. Put them into your campaign.
Yeah. So
I'll give you a shout out.
So, well, let's go over the basic traits of what a human has. And this is what, right off the bat, what most people choose human for, I would say, outside of it just being relatively safe. Because as we talk about, humans are so wide across the globe, you're not going to run into too many issues of, like, well, I'm hated here. Like, tieflings, which we talk about in another video, they can be revered as just...
They can be commonplace in society. They can also be, hey, get out.
Yeah, it's like, we don't take kindly to your
Or
kind.
instant murder.
what? Everybody
Yes.
loves tieflings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally love the idea of a demon.
There is
On my
the safe aspect of humans, which is appealing, but when you choose one, right out the gate, Sam, what do we get?
A +1.
To, like, everything?
Everything.
Every single thing gets a
Okay.
+1.
Everything of your ability scores.
Yeah.
So your strength, your dex, your wisdom, your intelligence, your charisma, your con, all of that gets +1 just for choosing human. Now, we've talked about with other races where you get maybe a +2 to con or a +1 to intelligence or something. This is a +1 to everything. So it makes an ideal choice if you're making a well-rounded character.
It is literally, let's say you rolled a 15, 15, 13, 12, 8, 8, 8.
Yeah.
There you go. You at least have 9s.
Yes.
And then you have
so
a
it
legit-
can be a lifesaver for sure.
Yes. Now, when it comes to age, they live human time. So maybe 100 years at best. And in those 100 years, you can get into their ambitions. Like, you can get into, if you make an NPC or make it your player, you can have their different ambitions, and human ambitions can range. I'm just doing this so if you guys want to, like, figure out a human and you want to have them stick out other than being the generic human in the party, give them an ambition, as in, like, if they are intellectual and a wizard, have them make some magical invention or have them make some arcane discovery. Like, find an ambition, because that's part of what humans are about, is having an overarching ambition that they shoot for. So find that ambition and shoot for it before your character dies at 100 years old, when the elf goes, oh, I still have another 650 to go.
Now, I just had another thought. It has nothing to do with necessarily the traits, but it's more of how humans can appear. Because you said about sticking out. Don't be afraid to use things like scars or tattoos, or even
Tattoos.
tattoos. But like a friend of our show, Sean, was talking about how he had found an artist who had found things where the more, if they were spellcasters, the more they failed certain spells, they received specific, like, scars, or like if they like.
It was really cool.
It was really
Yeah.
interesting, and I'm from your face, I'm guessing you haven't seen it, Brandon. We're gonna have to show you.
Oh, yeah, we'll
But, like,
definitely show
So,
it
like,
to
if
you.
you fail Eldritch Blast enough, like you were Nat 1, or just fail it so often, your body retaliates by, like, whatever the color of your Eldritch Blast starts to scar your hands, so that you could, like, you almost become marked by failed spells.
That's really dark.
I mean,
love it.
it's really interesting. So as far as or even with other things like certain appearances, like especially with modern day and especially with models, and as we become more body positive in the world, birthmarks or certain skin discolorations or things like albino and things like that. Like, definitely feel free to play with those if you're hoping to create a human. Like, if you like the idea of a human, but you really want to be different, definitely try thinking outside the box. And I just wanted to bring that in. This is a continuation of, like, humans can be relatively simple, but they can be what you make them.
You can make them hyper complex and whatever
Yes.
you want to do, and you can make whatever they want to do, however, like whatever they want to. Like, let's say their ambition is to get. It could be as simple as I want to get a tattoo from every major city in the world.
Right.
Boom. There's an ambition because it leaves a mark on at least the body. They want to leave a mark somewhere, and that's
right.
Like,
and it gives them a reason to travel.
Yep.
So they join a party and start doing stuff in hopes of being able to do that. So yeah, so definitely ambition is a great way to give them, especially when they live less than a century.
Yeah, that's exactly why you want to find a clear ambition and go for it. Now, alignment. They can be anywhere because, as we know from actual human histories, we have wonderful humans and awful humans and everything in between. So, if you want to make a human that is the Mother Teresa of humanity, go ahead. If you want to make a human that's more shady but isn't going to kick a puppy, do it. If you want to make a total evil character, you're a bad person, you should feel bad, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad.
So,
Evil all the way.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to size, and I promise this isn't a stab, but Sam, you want to tell us about size?
It was a stab. So generally, about 5 to 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall, somewhere in between that range. Like you said earlier, you can kind of go over...
Fluctuate it because humans fluctuate.
And your size, as far as, the game is considered your medium. So you can only have certain carrying capacities and that kind of stuff.
Humans are the definition of medium. When you look at a size comparing a human and the general size of a human, that's what medium is based on. So, easy rule of thumb, if it's, 1.5 times the size of a human, it's large, and 1.5 times smaller, it's small. I think that's how it goes, because large is like 14 feet, I think. So 7 I think. Something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly how that works. But that's a good rule of thumb if you want to think of how things sound.
Right. Now, just because we're on the topic of size, I have a question to you two as a DM. If a player wants to play, and this is going to sound odd, if someone wants to play a human but play a human with dwarfism, would you...
They would fall into the same category as dwarf. They would get the abilities of a human, but size small of the dwarf.
But make it so that they have the lower walking speed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course
because it would be under a certain height affects the size, so
right.
they would be considered a small humanoid
right.
as opposed to a medium.
Right, and I'm just curious because again, I'm always as we talk about things and we are very much character creators. I'm just always thinking how do you make a human different? It's there are people with because I can just see a human character walking. I was like, hey, look, it's a dwarf. I'm not a dwarf, dang it.
That'd be a good one. They would have a walking speed of 25. You might also want to make it so. It doesn't get the full spectrum of a +1 to everything. It might get a +1 to certain things and not another one.
Right.
So that would be an interesting way to do that. Good idea.
Okay, so and we had kind of briefly mentioned it, but as far as speed, your walking speed is 30 as a human.
The cool 30.
The cool 30. You are just kind of again middle ground.
You're middle of the road in a lot of ways, but you can exceed in a lot more.
Yes.
Where most races can exceed, you can do everything.
As far as languages go, common, but you can also pick another language of your choice. I mean, humans tend to do a lot of trading and merchants with other types of races, so they could probably pick up on another language after spending some time with them.
And in just like reality, humans love to steal words from other cultures and put them into their own.
That never happened in humanity once.
So then that's an actual thing, though, is humans will sometimes pick up words or phrases from other languages and put them into their own language. So they could... The orc word for bad, I don't know because it's an actual language. I don't know, but they could put that into their own dialect and then just say it. Like we say, I order numero uno. That's obviously not English.
Right. It's essentially you could take the idea of Spanglish and turn it. It's like Elflish or Orclish,
and just sort of sprinkle a little bit of extra words in there.
Right. So yeah, again, this is really emphasizing the fact that humans are very similar to us. Whereas most of the globe learns more than one language, these tend to learn more than one language, and so on and so forth. So that brings us to the fact that we talk about with other races, they are sub races or variants and stuff like that. As far as like in the handbook, there's not a whole lot other than just basic human. There is a variant human.
Yeah.
Which is it's an optional feat rule for the player's handbook.
It definitely gives it a little bit of variety if you want to give yourself ahead of the game, depending on whatever you pick. You can kind of accelerate your group up to a certain point, the variant human race. Or like, 1 through 5, you're accelerated a little bit, and then 5 onward, you've kind of like your group's caught up with what they can do.
Right. What we're talking about here is that with the variant human, you get to increase 2 of your ability scores by 1, and you gain a proficiency in 1 skill of your choice, and you gain a feat of your choice. Now, feats usually don't show up until what level?
Whenever you get an ability score improvement to 4.
Yeah,
so you get to start out level 1
with a feat.
With a feat, which is really good depending on what you're playing in your class and what you pick.
Right.
You can give yourself a magic spell that no one else can have because everyone else is level 1 and they have nothing.
Right.
So you can give yourself the ability to do things no one else can. But that's what I said. Like level 5, everyone else has gotten an ability score improvement. You get another one level by level 4, but it generally will start to mellow out unless you build a character that's like.
Right.
Yeah.
This is definitely where you're doing the pros and cons of where you're starting at or where you're going to be. You're like, okay, do I want to increase all of my stuff by 1, or do I go, well, my rolls are actually pretty good. I'll increase these 2, but I want to make sure that I'm proficient in this, as well as this 1 feat would be great for starting out with or having it before everyone else.
And once again, always talk to your DM. They may not allow this, or they may only allow it if you have a compelling reason in your backstory to be a part of it. Like for example, if I'm a DM and somebody's like, oh, I want to take the Sentinel feat as a variant human, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, how does that fit into your backstory? Like, were you?
What part of your wizard lets you learn that?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's going to be something that I feel like most DMs will probably need you to make some sense of.
Or it's going to be the reverse, where you might have a DM that goes, I don't like boring things, so if you're going to play a human, you got to start off with a variant.
That's very true.
Which would then limit how you build a human character, because now that we've gone through everything with humans, let's start talking about what you could do with a human. I'll put it in one word: everything.
You're not
because
wrong.
you have a +1 to all your stats. If you're going with regular human, whatever class you want is the class you can have based on your stats at the beginning. You can be anything. You could any sort of the classes we've talked about in the past. You can be it. You could technically multi-class. You have statistically the best likelihood with pluses and everything to take a 12 that you rolled into a 13 and be able to multi-class whatever you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great. So if you want to make your backstory something where you are a chili-slinging wizard, you definitely can with those +1s to everything. If your intelligence isn't the highest thing or next to highest thing, then your rolls are really bad and you should consider maybe not being a human
Maybe
Right.
being a wizard, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where you can even make stuff that's more ridiculous, because as D&D people were fans of things like Puff and Forrest on YouTube.
Oh my God.
With things like a character
Absurd!
who is a level in every class. And because of stuff like the +1 to everything, you're much more likely to be able to even pull something like that off. It comes down to, like you said, Brandon, as a human, you can do anything, more or less. It all comes down to the build that you do.
Your ambition and drive over your 100 years will push you to the greatest of heights. Or you'll die really early.
So, I mean, yeah, so with humans, there's not a whole lot to really delve into. There's just a little bit of that. They don't have any, like, racial feats that are any, or traits or anything that's really special.
The names are pretty standard.
Yeah.
We talked about
That's
names in the
true.
other one, but we talked also, names are pretty standard. You could be like Mark or Phil.
Right, or you could sound something much more in your head like D&D, whereas like, I am Chanar Soundthorn.
Or
And
I'm Minerva.
Like, yeah, there's not a whole real, like, hard and fast rule with, like, even, like, their names. Like, humans are so varied, it honestly could be.
If you want to get into the lore, go look at the Forgotten Realms. That's where humans are huge. They each have their own, like, city and cultivated, there we go, areas, and there's a whole bunch. So, like, elves have a lot, humans have more. So, definitely look, if you are putting your game setting into a specific area, look at the area and see what area fits best with you. Even if you're not starting there, have that in the pocket. and your DM will thank you, because then if you ever go back, your DM can go, here's this information I have.
So, like with the other, when we talk about the races, I think it's a good opportunity for us to go around and talk about our favorite human characters, either we've played, interact with, or, as DMs, you guys can also bring in NPCs. So why don't we start with you, Sam? I'm pretty sure I know who's about to show up. But
Devin.
Oh, wow.
Devin's my favorite human. One of Brandon's NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
Hey!
He's pretty great.
He's pretty
Who
great.
did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Chet.
I mean, I love Chet, but I haven't played him yet. So
Yeah, but you still love him pretty
I
much.
do love Chet. I can't wait. I mean, I don't want Cal to die, but I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay, Brandon, she's got Devin. Are you going to go ahead and agree with Devin being
I mean,
yours?
Devin's pretty amazing, but there's also my campaign, Max.
There is Max from your campaign.
I'll level with you. I've never played a human long enough if I've ever had a favorite one. Generally, I play a human for a bit and I go, this is boring. And then I leave them. Because humans, in my mind, are boring.
Right.
They have some really cool... You can do some really cool things with them just whenever I'm actually a player for once. Like, I don't want to do that.
True. I mean, as a DM, you have the problem of playing things like humans on a regular basis.
I play humans behind that screen because most of the world is based on humans. So
Right. So when you get a chance to play, I mean, it was kind of like when I started playing D&D, I didn't want to play a human. And I made characters galore that were not human because, the whole point of D&D was that you could be something else.
But my next character, whenever I make one, will probably be a human because there hasn't been a release, other than the lockdowns that came out a while ago, there hasn't been a release of a race that I've been like, oh, I want to play that.
You're right. I mean, you've also been playing for so long, you've interacted with most of these things.
I played most of them.
For me, it's one I haven't gotten a chance to play yet, but I'm excited to whenever I decide I'm going to, and that is my human monk. He's a luchador. Like, as far as culture-wise, because anyone who knows me, I'm very big into, like, wrestling, but I'm also very big into the culture of lucha libre, Mexican wrestling. So I thought it'd be a great idea to have a character. Originally, it started off with me making, like, it's supposed to be, like, this well-known one who goes off on his own, be like, well, I've gotten all the championships, I'll go fight things now. But I think it was you, Sam, that told me that maybe not have him do that.
Yeah.
So then I changed it. I was like, okay, well, with the culture, they change it so that they pass on their legacies, usually to a son or a protege. So I was like, oh, what if I do it? And he's Dragonheart Jr. And his dad's like, go out and make a name for yourself. And he was like, well, how do I prove myself to live up to my dad's legacy? I'll go out and become an actual, like, well-known fighter. And so then when I come back to, like, wrestling...
I'll literally murder people.
Well, he would at least have the recognition and be seen as much more of a, rather than like, oh, it's a kid wearing a mask. Like, no, this is a badass who's just showed up. And you're like, oh no, he's going to wreck the division. And so I'm excited to play him because I would want to delve into much more of the culture. Like, he refuses to take off his mask. He has to live through the persona. Very few would either know what his face looks like or even his real name. It would be interesting in a party dynamic.
The party dynamic would be like, take off your mask. Take off your mask. Take off your mask. Take off your mask. Shut up, take off your mask. Shut up, take off your mask.
Elder Splits.
What do you look like? Almost Mage-Hand.
It'd be like that scene from the old Disney Mulan where like it's like he'll like be taking a bath or something. It's like, hey, what'd you do? Oh no! It's like your mask is soaked. Oh no!
Yeah.
I bathed it. So that leaves. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean that would give me a great idea for at least keeping a human interesting to me. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, I can see where some humans can get kind of
Boring.
but
If you want to check out an interesting one, not to plug them, over and over and over again, check out Critical Role's Caleb Widogast, who's played by Liam O'Brien. That is a good example of a human that, when you see a human, you're like, oh, okay. But then you get into the backstory and you're like, oh. And like also, say on the same regard, Bo, which is Marisha Ray's character. They're both humans, and they both do humans right. They're humans that are diverse enough and eclectic enough and interesting enough where you take their shortcomings because they don't get dark vision, they don't get any special hearing, they don't get any special senses. You take those faults and you go, man, they really have those challenges. And then when they have those moments where they succeed, you're just like, humans overcoming the odds against with people. So that's the hard thing to do. Like, let's say you're in a party with a barbarian Goliath and you're a human fighter. Mm-hmm. In strength, you may match, but statistically, the barbarian's going to do more. Yeah. So when that human fighter pulls off something cool, everyone, Like when the barbarian does something cool, it's like, okay, that's the Goliath. Like
Right.
that's the Goliath for you. But when the human like lifts a giant boulder and does something, everyone's like, that human just did that thing. And
Right.
That's the cool thing.
This is definitely where, like, if you're going to play a human, definitely really look into creating a good character.
Make dynamic choices.
Yes. I mean, like, as we talked about, maybe not always a tragic backstory, but some kind of backstory that has interest, that reflects the character's choices and their actions and things like that. Because, again, we're playing characters, and with humans, it almost seems like doubly so. Really work on the actual character and story you're trying to tell with that character, unless you are just dicking around and you're a bunch of murderers.
Or you're new.
Or you're new.
Which is fine.
Yeah, humans are, if you're looking for a well-rounded thing just to start off with.
Humans, that's why they're made.
Yeah, this is usually why you'll see something. Human fighters are so common, because as a new player, it's like, hey, here's a well-rounded character that you could do just about anything you want to with. And most people are going to be like, thank you.
Thank you for giving me enough HP and abilities to do things where I'm not going to die in my session for a third session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't... you said tragic. Like, if you're not going to do tragic, do dynamic.
Yes.
If that's the thing. If you're not going to do a tragic backstory, do a dynamic backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Give you something that's going to... Even if it's something small at the beginning, make it so it can be something important at the end with your DM, because that makes everybody feel better.
Right. Because, I mean, even if it's something as, like, you were a farmer who just kind of got stuck doing stuff, anything that he pulls
If
off...
you were a farmer that learned magic, slung chili.
Well, I mean, because imagine a human character who is, like, just a farmer who is now part of this party, and, like, anything he does will be amazing to him and even the rest of the party. Like, if you have, like, a Goliath, a dragonborn, and a dwarf, and this human is just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Slaughters a dragon. Holy crap, guys. Everyone's like, holy crap, Ted killed the dragon. This is awesome.
So things like that.
Yes. And that's where you'll rely a little bit on the other party to kind of embrace the story as well. And this is where, if you're looking to do that, finding the right group is always good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Your party should not belittle you for being a human.
Yes. Just us.
I'll belittle you.
So I think that's all we really have for humans. Again, they're fairly middle of the road, easy to explain. They're humans. They got their perks and their bonuses, but nothing too out of the ordinary there.
A good starting point. We started with some other races to give you a little bit more of some of that spice. But if a good starting point, human.
Yes.
Solid pick.
All right. So I think that with that, we'll see you guys next time on D10tion. D10tion dismissed.